Olá pessoal, tudo bem? Estamos aqui mais uma entrevista. Estamos aqui na casa do Rajaraman. Your name?
So sorry. It's okay if I have this here?
No, no problem.
No problem?
Of
Okay.
Okay. What's your name? How can I pronounce it?
Sure. Dithu Rajaraman.
Oh.
Okay, let's try.
Dithu.
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 Perfect. Dithu. Then Rajaraman.
Rajaraman.
Raman.
Raman.
Beautiful.
Rajaraman.
Okay.
Ok.
Yeah, one word. Rajaraman.
Rajaraman.
Beautiful.
Ok.
With an
Pegaram,
N.
né?
Rajaraman.
Rajaraman.
Beautiful.
Ok. Eu vou chamar só de Dithu, que é mais fácil. Dithu is some way to say di is very useful, very uses the people in Brazil say in the northeast in Brazil.
Di.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
di. It's a dialect.
It's not so hard for us.
Beautiful.
Ok. Eu tô aqui com o Dithu e nós vamos conversar sobre o Trauma Informed Care em ABA, que é muito importante, né? É uma das bases daquilo que a gente vem discutindo nos últimos anos sobre a implementação da análise do comportamento aplicada. É um prazer enorme estar aqui. Thank you a lot to do this interview with me. Really, really good. Can you introduce yourself to the Brazilian audience, please?
I would. Obrigado. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dithu Rajaraman. I am an assistant professor in pediatrics at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where I currently serve as Director of Behavior Analysis Research. And Vanderbilt University is in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, which is in the south of America. I'm sorry, in the south of the United States of America, not South America. But I feel like we are one and the same, because I'm from the Southern America and you guys are from South America.
Thank you. Nós estamos na casa dele aqui, estamos aqui na fogueirinha, uma coisa super bacana, super acolhedora. Can you explain to us some of the barriers that you find about the trauma-informed care?
Absolutely, yeah. Trauma, the kind of the concept of trauma as a general concept is a little bit tricky for behavior analysts to understand and to accept, because when we talk about an individual who has experienced trauma, what is trauma? Is trauma a response? Is trauma an event? Or is trauma maybe a little bit of both? And when folks write about trauma in books and even in the literature, it's not very clear. Oftentimes, in kind of the non-behavior analytic literature, trauma is referred to as a response. The trauma response occurs to some sort of adverse event. But it's hard to know specifically like what that response is in terms of what it looks like. For a behavior analyst, it's hard to know what is the function of that behavior, the response that's occurring that may be considered a trauma response. And furthermore, we've had a hard time historically bringing this concept of trauma into our functional analysis of behavior. So if I can be a little bit more, if I can speak kind of more regular to conversationally speaking, some individuals experience terrible trauma in their lives. Some of the common things that cause trauma are physical abuse in your life, witnessing other physical abuse or domestic violence, neglect in your life, sexual violence, racial violence, all those things. These are kind of events that occur in our past that can have a really lasting impact on who we are. But when it comes to ABA, I'm working with a new client and they're engaging in some dangerous and challenging behavior, and it's my job to help that person. It can be hard to, the barrier is it can be hard to understand, like, well, what is the role that trauma plays in their dangerous behavior that I'm seeing in front of me, and what is the role that it should play in how I approach designing a treatment for trauma, for somebody who may have been traumatized. So some of the barriers are mainly as it relates to the behavior analytic conceptualization is largely environmental, and we often look to the environment around us. What's supporting the behavior? What's reinforcing the behavior in this moment? But trauma can be something that happened to us 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's very difficult. The other barrier is that behavior analysts, as you know, and as many of you know, we love data. We want to do something that is evidence-based. And when it comes to things that are called trauma-informed care, the evidence base is not very strong right now. It's very limited, it's small, and we want to improve upon the evidence base for trauma-informed care through a behavior analytic lens so that we can help serve individuals who have experienced some severe trauma using ABA techniques and methods.
What's the core commitment to work with trauma-informed care?
Beautiful, yes. So thank you for asking this question. I want to make it clear, when we talk about trauma, trauma is a thing that individuals experience. Trauma-informed care is very different. Trauma-informed care is what you and I can do as practitioners, as researchers, as people who are creating ABA programs for these children. We can do programs that are aligned with the commitments of trauma-informed care, or we can do programs that are not aligned with the commitments of trauma-informed care. So when you talk about commitments, trauma-informed care, first of all, acknowledges the pervasive impact of trauma. Basically, what I mean by that is, in ABA, we serve a lot of kids who have autism and intellectual disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities. The statistics are staggering. The amount of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who have experienced a traumatic event or multiple traumatic events in their life is much higher than their typically developing peers. So step one is, if we want to be trauma informed, we should at least acknowledge the possibility that our clients may have experienced trauma. We don't know about it. They come to our doorstep, mom and dad say, hey, they're hitting their head when something happens, and you know, we want you to understand the reinforcers for that. We don't know if they have trauma, but step one says we should just assume maybe, or at least acknowledge the possibility that they may have experienced some trauma, and that this current dangerous behavior that we're seeing may be an expression of that trauma. If we assume that, rather than say, oh, no, this child is only doing it because it's attention maintained, or this child is only hitting their head because it's escape maintained. If we assume that maybe there's a larger picture here, that there's some trauma here, then it might help guide us to be a little bit more trauma-informed in our next steps. The next commitment is something called ensuring safety and trust. What this means is individuals who have experienced trauma, physical abuse, neglect, violence, sexual violence, these things often cause harm to these individuals in situations where they don't have control, where they don't, and certainly where they don't feel safe. So our job, if we're working with these clients and trying to support them and teach them skills and trying to help them, is to make sure that the space, the environment that we create is supremely safe and is an environment where they can trust every single person that they're talking to. What that means is that there should be safety from the moment they walk in until the moment that they leave. They shouldn't be worried that, oh, well, if I do maybe one misbehavior, then these adults are going to come and they're going to restrain me, or they're going to throw me into a timeout room or something like that. The individual should feel safe throughout, and they should know that the people that they're interacting with are people that they can trust, that they can approach, and they could say, hey, I don't like the way that you're treating me. Hey, I don't want to do ABA today. That's what we mean when we say ensuring safety and trust. The third commitment is promoting choice and collaboration. And really what that boils down to is that individuals who have been traumatized often experience that trauma in situations, like I said, where they have no control over the situation. You don't have any control if your father is abusive. You don't have any control over the fact that your parents are neglecting you. You don't have any control over the fact that you are witnessing very violent acts in your life. And so when we are doing a therapy that's in the name of ABA and we're trying to help these individuals, we need to give these clients as much control as possible. We need them to, from the moment they're walking into our clinic, into our school, into our center, we need them to be in charge, to be able to say, I would like to enter this room where I'm going to experience some ABA procedure. Maybe it's a procedure that's based on the principle of extinction. Maybe it's a procedure that's based on the principle of punishment. But I'm the one that's choosing to walk into that room. That's what we mean when we say promoting choice and promoting collaboration. We are not saying, hey kid, I know that you've experienced some trauma, but I need you to come into this room anyway. We're going to do some tough stuff. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do escape extinction. I'm going to work you through it because I need to teach you this. No, we're saying instead, I I want to give you as much autonomy and agency and control over your experience of ABA as possible. So those are the first 3 commitments. The final commitment, thank goodness, this is trauma-informed care, and this is probably one of the things that ABA does best. The final commitment is emphasizing skill building, which means that when people have experienced trauma, they often the trauma happens and they're helpless in the sense they cannot necessarily overcome future trauma. The events that were traumatic when you were 5 years old might happen to you when you're 15, when you're 16, when you're 17. We don't know. We can't predict the world. The world is unpredictable. The world is difficult. The world can be challenging. So it is our job as behavior analysts, as helping professionals, to give our clients and these individuals skills so that if they run into this situation again, if they witness some physical violence, if they experience some abuse, that they have the skills to know what to do, to be resilient in that moment, to know how to self-advocate, to say, you know what, this is not a situation that I want to be in. I need to leave here, and that they have the skills to kind of navigate those tricky and challenging situations in their life. So those are kind of the main commitments of trauma-informed care.
Sometimes we only teach to the people with autism to compliance. And this can be tricky because you don't have to compliance with abusive situation. There is need to change our position, our goals to teach compliance in every situation, in every in front of other people, right?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what's at the heart of trying to bridge trauma-informed care with ABA. ABA throughout history has been about trying to apply the principles of behavior analysis, reinforcement, extinction, punishment, stimulus controls, to these behavioral problems of social significance. We're all on the same team here. We want to help individuals, but some of our procedures throughout history and even till today kind of they require compliance as opposed to encouraging cooperation, if I can use that language. So ABA sometimes says, listen, this child needs to learn to get on the bus to go to school. So we're just going to make them comply. We're going to use escape extinction. We're going to use punishment, and we're going to use negative reinforcement, coercive tactics to get individuals to comply. What trauma-informed care is really saying at its heart is that in and of itself might be traumatizing to our individuals. When our ABA procedures are the things that are contributing to the trauma, that's very bad. We need to look in the mirror. We need to say, hey, this is not okay. We should be doing better. We should be creating behavioral programs, ABA procedures based on principles of positive reinforcement, where we are inspiring these learners to want to do the thing that we want them to do. Yes. And we have a technology for doing that. It's well within our set of principles and procedures that we've studied.
There is some concerns about the functional assessment or analysis. So the safety and about the safety and about the trauma too. How can we adapt the functional assessment with the path, the form in trauma-informed care?
Yeah, this is.
It's kind of wet.
It's kind of wet.
It's now getting.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
I'm okay, but are you worried? I'm worried about the camera.
No. The camera is okay, but this is very good. Thank you. Yes, will be.
It's supposed to rain.
I
don't think it'll get worse than this, but
I think this is passing.
It's passing. Yeah.
I think.
If you're okay with the camera,
Yes,
I'm okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
How's it going so far? Yeah,
Yes.
we're doing okay. Good.
We are very good.
Very
Very
good.
good. Yes. Let me dry it.
You want to try that one again? Yeah.
No. Yes. How can we adapt the functional assessment with the trauma-informed care and this approach of the trauma approach?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Thank you for asking it. If you know, sometimes when I talk about trauma-informed care to some audiences, especially like folks that are really interested in traditional ABA, they think, oh, that's too soft. Oh, well, we're not going to be able to help kids unless we can give them that tough love. And especially with the functional assessment. You and I both know functional assessment is incredibly important. When children are engaging in dangerous behavior, we need to first ask, why are you engaging in that behavior before we attempt to treat it? Throughout history, the functional analysis procedures that we use, though, if you think about it, if you think about the fact that trauma is defined as having some sort of adverse experience that has lasting impact on your behavior. And another way of saying that is some stimulus in the environment causes you to react in a way that is extraordinary, that is disproportionate to the circumstances. Sometimes that extraordinary behavior that's disproportionate to the circumstances is the problem behavior, is the challenging behavior that we want to address. So if I'm working with a client who's hitting their head whenever dad walks into the room, then I might conduct a functional assessment where I say, well, we need to test this hypothesis. I need to bring dad into the room. I need to see this learner hit their head before I remove dad, because that will help me understand the contingencies supporting this challenging behavior. So in the very definition of functional analysis, where the functional analysis that is defined by us repeatedly evoking the dangerous behavior, there's a possibility that we're traumatizing the child. And this is very problematic for individuals who have experienced severe trauma. The problematic part of it is we are doing this in the name of ABA. I'm coming in and saying, I'm a scientist, so I must spend a day, a week, a month bringing dad into your life, watching you hit your head, and then letting dad leave. That's very bad. So how can we be more trauma-informed in our assessment? Well, we have a ton of research that supports the notion that we don't need to see children hit their head. We can just see children engage in what we call precursor responses or non-dangerous associated responses. We can see children just bite their finger and we can have dad leave. So that's thing number one. Number two, we can create procedures that don't require a week or a month or 3 months. We can create procedures that require just 20 minutes. We call those procedures performance-based procedures, where we're looking for child behavior and we're waiting for just the earliest sign of distress, and then we're backing off. And we can do it in as short as 3 trials. If we see 3 times that the child is biting their finger and we back off, then we're done. We don't need to conduct any more assessment. So
let me stop you. Can I have another tile to put inside the machine, because the camera, I think, it's
getting wet.
Yes,
should we take it in, or do you think we want another?
No. That we can do that.
I can't believe it started raining.
Yes. This is decreasing, but I don't know.
It make you nervous? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We can do that with not so much trials.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think what I was saying is that our traditional functional analyses often involve lots of trials, lots of sessions. They're protracted across months, and we don't need to be doing that. I mean, that has some real potential to induce trauma and to make children associate their experience with ABA with the experience of trauma. We don't want to do that either. So our functional analysis procedures, we've developed a lot of procedures over the past decade that have helped us shorten the time that children are being exposed to these evocative events, shorten the amount of behavior that we need to see before we will reinforce and back off, and shorten the amount of overall duration of the analysis before we move on to treating, which is what we really want to be doing. Instead of saying, I need to see this 100 times, I need to see the child hit their head, we're waiting to see just 3 times.
No, you change.
You move the angle. Jessel.
Okay, that's good. I'm sorry.
That's B-roll.
Now we're on to C-roll because of you. Jessel, real quick, while you ruined this, can you top me off a little bit?
Oh yeah, it is. B-roll.
This is okay so far?
No, okay. It's actually these things are very funny in the video. It's very natural.
It's very natural. Very natural. Oh, now we have a bigger flame too.
Yeah, yes.
Checking to see if it was like in your face.
She is more competent than Josh and the fire.
Did you hear that, Brazil? Did you hear that, Brazil? Dr. Gesso,
Take that off.
he can do a functional analysis of problem behavior, but not a functional analysis of how to start a fire.
All right.
How do you say fire? Fuego?
Fogo.
Fogo. Of course, fogo de chao.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fogo.
Fogo problema. Fogo problema. Fogo de chao. Okay. So sorry. So where were we?
You said we have technology to do the functional assessment with some little sections and not so much time. We need a lot of precision. That's important of the precision.
We need precision with respect to what we are reinforcing. You know, the behaviors that we wait to observe before we deliver reinforcement, we do need precision there. I think that I would like to end it by saying this. I'm not saying that we should move away from functional analysis, but we need to balance the fact that a functional analysis is inherently evocative. A functional analysis has the potential to traumatize the clients that we work with. If a child experiences trauma in the functional analysis, that means that they are experiencing trauma during ABA. I really think that we can be better than that. And so we need to balance the importance of the functional analysis, what we learn from it, with the kind of risk associated with it. And it's something that you're not going to be able to open up a journal article that talks about the trauma associated with functional analysis because it's a very new concept that we're thinking about. We have historically been able to justify conducting hundreds of sessions because it was in the best interest of the child. What we're simply saying now is, in order to be a trauma-informed approach, we need to make our best effort to reduce the time in the functional analysis, and definitely not wait till we observe the most dangerous topography of behavior, and and instead reinforce non-dangerous behaviors quickly, efficiently, and move on to treatment.
Okay. Let's consider some children that have passed through a trauma experience. How can we help those children, to recover from trauma and development some resilience to other situations?
Sure. That's a very good question, and I have to admit, my research that has been focused on trauma-informed care is a little bit different from research that's focused on trauma-specific services. So when an individual has experienced a specific type of trauma, I do not claim to have expertise in how to address that situation, because that it requires a nuance of understanding what is the source of the trauma, how often is that trauma occurring, and how can we overcome it. And there is a distinction between trauma-informed care and trauma-specific services. So I think I'll talk about that because I think it's useful here. Trauma-specific service is typically when you go to a psychotherapist,
yes,
a licensed psychologist, and they might conduct something like an exposure therapy so that you can overcome your particular trauma. What I'm talking about as trauma-informed care is something that I believe can apply to every ABA organization, something that says whether or not the children that you come in have a documented history of trauma, you should engage in procedures that will prevent the likely reoccurrence of trauma or the likely occurrence of trauma. So I want to just make it clear that those are two different things. That said, if I'm working with a client and I know that they've experienced some particular trauma, let's say that they've been abused by some man, and now they are completely uncomfortable around any men, and that they don't want to be around. As soon as some man walks in the room, they start to have extraordinarily dangerous behavior, and that behavior only goes away when that man leaves. This is something that does happen in ABA organizations. I've worked with clients that are they will only work with female teachers, they will only work with female nurses, everything like that. We cater their whole life so that they only work with females. Number one, I want to say that as a short-term solution, that's the right thing to do. Let's not force them to interact with men if that's something that they don't feel comfortable with, they don't feel safe with. What we're talking about from a behavior analytic perspective is that there's a stimulus class that is associated with males, and those stimuli, when you and I walk in with our beard and we say, hey buddy, how's it going? That is evoking some type of dangerous behavior that's being maybe reinforced by escape from you and escape from me. I think that that's a defensible behavior analytic interpretation of what might be going on. So how can we help that student? I think that we need to help that student because you know what? They're going to encounter environments in their life where they meet a man, where they have to interact with a man. They're going to get a job where their coworker is a man who has a beard. We cannot expect that they can go through life and never interact with a man again. But we can approach the notion that we want them to be able to tolerate being around men, that we want them to learn to be comfortable around men and learn that men are safe, that men are not a threat. We need to do that very carefully and very systematically. And when we do that, it's very similar to how we would address many other issues that we address with our skill-based treatment, with our trauma-informed approaches to intervention. We look at the situation, we say, what's evoking this behavior? Oh, it's the presentation of a person. Well, what's the end goal? The end goal is that this child can tolerate being in the presence of men, and we would just be very, very careful in shaping the skill set of tolerating men being in your presence. We would be very careful in ensuring that any men that we present to this person in the name of ABA programs are men that are safe, that are not harmful, that are there to support this learner. So I guess that's one example of, if I knew of one kid's particular trauma, I would still engage in what I think is a skill-based treatment process of teaching you to first communicate, to learn how to communicate, to self-advocate, to say, I don't feel comfortable in this space where there's men here, I want to leave. Okay, I want to reinforce that. Then I want to teach you to tolerate and cope. Hey, I want to leave this space, a lot of men here. No, you cannot leave. Okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me learn how to just sit in this space. And then I want to eventually teach you to approach other men who I believe will be safe and will be a positive influence on your life.
Yes, a man doing a pairing with him to increase this toleration.
Yes, we could use pairing procedures. That's a great idea. We could say, hey, you can't leave the situation, but I want you to play your favorite video game with Louis. He's a great guy, and you're going to love him. And I just want you to play for actually just 15 seconds, and then I'm going to tell Louis, get out of here so that you can be more comfortable.
Yes.
And that might be a way that we can bridge that gap, but we need to do all of that in a way that really respects that individual's autonomy and assent. By that I mean we need to really respect if the learner says, nope, today's not the day. I do not want to interact with Louis today. We say, yeah, you're right. You're not going to have to interact. I'm not going to force you to do this. Yes. It is what is best for you, because I'm worried that when you're 30 years old, you're going to get a new job. You're going to move to a new house, and there's going to be some men there. I don't want you to be helpless in that situation. I want you to be strong and resilient. Like I said, I want you to be able to navigate an unpredictable world. So I want you to build those skills. But if today's not that day, don't worry about it. We'll try again tomorrow. Don't worry about it. We'll try again next week.
If you feel more comfortable, I can play with you Halo 1 or 2 because it's more simple. You can.
How beautiful is that? we can that kind of stuff is beautiful. Behavior analysts are so good at saying, how can I create a preferred environment? How can I create a reinforcing environment? Your experience with a man in the past was that he was physically abusive to you. How can I change your association with the stimulus? You know, how the stimulus class that is man needs to be shifted towards something positive. That same thing happened with me and vegetables. When I was younger, I hated eating vegetables. And when my mom said, you have to eat this vegetable, I said, get it out of my face. I would fight, I would cry, I would tantrum. But she started to give me some vegetables with some French fries, vegetables with macaroni and cheese. And now I love vegetables, you know? So it's something that's a very simple, oversimplified example. Yes, wow. But it's the notion that the aversive situations in our lives need not be aversive for forever. It just requires careful shaping and pairing, and that we should always respect the assent and autonomy of the learners that we work with.
He told me he used to play Halo 1 and 2. That's more simple than the new games. It's very difficult.
I cannot keep up with these modern games. It's too difficult for me.
Yes, there's a lot of games, a lot of features. It's very difficult to play. Me too.
But I would love to play video games with you, Louis.
Yes, yes, we will someday.
Great. In Sao Paulo, hopefully.
Yes. I have on one Xbox. We'll do that.
The new one?
Yes.
I'm coming. Yeah. Yes. I'm booking my flight.
We can play the new Halo Infinite. Yes, you probably will love. And there is another, the new Assassin's Creed is very good.
Awesome.
Yes.
You will beat me, but
Yeah.
I will learn.
Okay. Street Fighter. You remember Street Fighter, right?
Yes, from Sega Genesis.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You can. There is a new Street Fighter 6.
Really?
Yes, in June.
Okay.
Yes, we can play.
I'm
Yes,
coming.
Yes,
I'm coming.
How can the behavior analyst prevent or reduce the probability of the incur do some trauma, expose to the patients to some kind of trauma?
How can we reduce it as behavior analysts?
You can prevent.
How can we prevent it?
The trauma in the clinic or in the schools.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I see what you're asking.
Even if the behavior analyst itself, because a lot of them suffer trauma too with challenge behavior.
Yes, of course. Oh, so you're asking how can we prevent experiencing trauma as behavior analysts?
Yes, and in the children.
Okay. I'll start with the children. This is a really beautiful question. It's very, very complicated. So I'll start with the children first. And the children, I'm just going to summarize what I've said so far. We cannot control what happens in people's lives. I do not monitor anybody for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's nobody who will ever have that kind of monitoring. So people might experience the trauma. The data are too clear. People are going to experience trauma, whether we like it or not. But we can do our part when they're experiencing ABA, when they're coming to our clinic, when they're coming to our school. We can do our part to minimize that. We can do that by creating safe environments, by giving individuals as much control as possible, by teaching them the skills to help them navigate their most challenging situations, and by making sure that they feel safe and that they trust the people that they work with throughout. So that, to me, those are the commitments and the strategies that will help us minimize trauma. When it comes to ourselves, well, we should adhere to the same commitments. I should be able to feel safety and trust in my place of work. I should have a little bit of control over what I do at my job. I should learn the skills that I need to be successful at my job. So if I'm a teacher, a behavior analyst, and I'm getting assaulted by my clients and it's causing me so much trauma that I'm scared to go into work the next day, I should be able to self-advocate for myself. I should be able to say, listen, I cannot come to work tomorrow and work with this child. It's too hard for me. I cannot work with Philippe because I'm scared tomorrow, and I just, tomorrow's not a good day. And we should create a culture in our ABA programs. We should create a culture in our companies that says, thank you for telling me you don't have to work with that client. We will make a switch. You can work with somebody else tomorrow. I think that's a very important thing that we start to think about. It's not easy because in America, the staffing crisis is a very real thing. It's very hard to hire people that will work in ABA for many reasons. So it's not easy for me to say, sure, take tomorrow off. You don't have to come in, or no, you don't have to work with this child. But we need to start creating those systems. We need to work toward creating those systems so that somebody can feel safe. They can feel comfortable calling their supervisor and saying, I cannot come to work tomorrow. I don't feel safe. So that's number one. Number two, we should create systems where our staff, our behavior technicians, our educators, that they're able to maybe have a little bit of autonomy over what they do. You know, like that they could say, I will work with Philippe, but I want to work on just leisure skills because we have a good time doing that leisure skill. I don't want to work on the math and the English, or math and the reading. That's too hard. He's having problem behavior. It's really traumatizing for me. We should be able to allow some of that wiggle room too. But just like with our clients, we need to teach the skills. If you're having a hard time as a staff teaching math to your learner, I should be able to support you as your supervisor and say, can you watch me do this? This is how we do this. When we're doing math, if Felipe is feeling a little agitated, then I generally back off. I let him play on his iPad for a little bit. You can do that too. So we can apply the same commitments of ensuring safety and trust, promoting choice and collaboration, and emphasizing skill building to our staff as the same things that we do to our students and our clients.
Let me just see. Okay. Later, I will ask you about another paper, a few about man compliance. Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. the other question here is there is a lot of Brazilians that are reading your work about trauma-informed care. We told you.
I'm very honored, by the way. Thank you so much, Brazil.
Yes.
Thank you for reading it.
And we have wonderful researchers, and that is important to them to know what's the gaps and what's the limitations these days in the research about trauma-informed care, that we should research about it too, because we can occupy some of these gaps, resolve some of these gaps, and because we have to have some studies in the other country, another culture to test the external validation of your findings.
That is a beautiful point, because I think that it is, I'm only beginning to understand that to be trauma-informed also means to be culturally responsive. What that means is what causes trauma in America might be different from what causes trauma in Brazil. How we respond to trauma in America might be very different from how we respond to trauma in Brazil. So I'm so humbled and grateful that folks in Brazil, that professionals in Brazil are reading this work, are excited about this work, and are interested in doing research about this work. Let's start by just talking about this. There's virtually no research that is using the language of trauma-informed care, these commitments that I'm talking about, acknowledging the trauma and its potential impact, documenting trauma, ensuring safety and trust in our procedures, promoting choice and collaboration, and emphasizing skill building. There's very little research to validate those procedures. So if there are people in Brazil, if you're listening, and you are interested in doing research, take some of those procedures, create a protocol that incorporates all of those procedures, and show us how using those procedures helps children overcome their difficult situations. It doesn't make it worse, it makes it better. Create some research that helps us understand that these procedures are preferred to the traditional ABA procedures that don't really take into consideration the impacts that we might have, the way in which we might be traumatizing individuals. So that's the general point is this. There's a whole, the future looks beautiful and bright because we can study trauma and understand how trauma is playing into the problem behavior that we are so good at addressing and treating. And I'm so excited about the research that incorporates these things from the beginning. It's very, you may have read some studies where it's like, we did this procedure, it was a little bit evocative, the child had a lot of challenging behavior, and then at the end we asked, did you like that procedure? And they said, no, I didn't like it. Don't do that. What we should do instead is we should incorporate measures of social validity. We should ask, how would you like to be treated? How can I give you control over your procedures? How can I make sure that you feel safe and that you trust me? And how can I teach you skills in a context where you feel safe and you trust me? And how can I demonstrate that by doing those things on the front end, I actually improve your outcomes? I actually get the same outcomes, but not slower at the same pace. Those are the kinds of questions that we're only beginning to understand. And probably the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest question to ask is, how do we document trauma that people have experienced for autistic individuals who don't have strong language skills? Right now, most of the trauma scales require that you have that you have developmentally appropriate language. You and I can read these scales and say, do you ever go about your day and worry that somebody's behind you looking at you? Those are the kinds of questions that they ask in these trauma skills. Do you ever have nightmares about something that will never happen, but then you spend your whole day thinking about it? That's trauma, right? That's how we've defined trauma based off of these scales. Imagine a child with autism answering those questions. They cannot answer that. So we need to come up with a way to measure the impact of trauma for our learners that we serve, so that we can understand, hey, is my ABA procedure making trauma worse or making it better, basically?
When I adopt the approach of the informed care, I can be responsible, but by what I do. But usually you have to collaborate with other professionals. is a speech language pathologist, OT. How can we use this approach to collaborate with these other professionals?
That's a beautiful thought. I would hope that a trauma, so let me say it this way. We've done some studies with some procedures that I believe are trauma informed. We call those procedures the enhanced choice model. It's my belief that the enhanced choice model is a useful way to interact with all learners, whether or not we know they have trauma. It's a way that allows them to choose to come or leave anytime they want. And the procedures that we call enhanced choice model that allows learners to participate in therapy or not, to participate in school or not, or maybe they just go into a break room, a calm down room, a hangout room where they feel safe. I believe that those procedures are applicable for any helping professional. So a speech and language pathologist knows more about how to select the right modality of communication for our learners. They know much more about that than me. A physical therapist will be able to help my autistic learner gain the muscles that they need to do some writing behavior much better than me. An occupational therapist will be able to help with certain skills much better than me. What I can do as a behavior analyst is create the environmental context that will be most successful for their learning. What I can do is create the context that says, hey, we want this child to not only feel safe, but to choose to enter into this classroom so they can learn speech from you, so they can learn physical therapy from you, so they can learn special education from you. I honestly believe that at the end of the day, behavior analysts should really consider what is our role. Our role is in designing environments that motivate children to want to learn. That we understand reinforcement better than anybody else. We understand establishing operations better than anybody else. We should be creating environments where the children are very motivated. That is, that there are the right establishing operations in place for us to teach them the behaviors that we want that will result in the reinforcers that are important to them. And so I believe that is how we can best help other professionals be successful at what they want to teach children.
What you talk about the enhanced model, but what's the difference of the based model or former model and the enhanced model?
Oh yes, of course. When I talk about the enhanced choice model, it's something that we have thus far only evaluated in the context of what we call skill-based treatment. So I know many of you are fans of Dr. Greg Hanley and Dr. Josh Jessel. I know that they're big names in Brazil. I'm very jealous.
Yes.
I hope I can. I'm just kidding. But skill-based treatment obviously refers to behavioral interventions that after you understand what's reinforcing problem behavior, you teach skills that allow children to produce those same reinforcers by communicating, by tolerating when they can't have their reinforcers, by coping, and by cooperating. The enhanced choice model is a version of that treatment where we don't ever force them to come into the room to the treatment. We are always offering them the opportunity to choose to come into the treatment where it's hard work. To learn those skills is not easy because it means I'm going to ask you to practice in the hardest situations in your life. When you come into skill-based treatment, I'm saying, I need you to put down your favorite toys, your iPad, and I need you to do mathematics. And that's hard for some people. Sometimes in skill-based treatment, it's too hard. It's so hard that it creates more problems than it helps. So the enhanced choice model is a model where we say, if you want to do that, you can, and I will support you in that, and I promise I will make it. I want to ensure your success as much as possible. But there's also this other space. There's another space that we call the hangout space, where you can go and you can have those same reinforcers that are important to you, but you can have them for free. And there's also a third option. The third option is you can always leave. You can always say, no, see you later, I'm all done, bye-bye. And we would always honor that. So that's basically what the enhanced choice model is. There's a couple of other components that are more specific, but the main point is that it's a model that allows us to give children the opportunity to leave, and it allows us to use that data. If they choose to leave, it's data that's important for us. It teaches us that the context that we're creating is not preferred for them. So it allows us to be smart and analytic and create a better space that will be more preferred and enriching to those learners.
What are you working these days? What's the future of this approach, and what the future which are you specifically working on?
Thank you so much for asking. I'm currently working with this organization in the state of Tennessee that works with pretty much every public school in the state. What do you guys call public school?
Escola pública.
Escola pública, yes. Great, okay. Yeah, so we work with every public school, and we have a setup where the kids that are highest risk in the state, when I say high risk, I mean they are being put in timeout, they're being physically restrained a lot, they are being suspended a lot. They, instead of coming to school for 8 hours, they're coming to school only for 1 hour because they're so dangerous.
Like tier 3 in PBS.
Tier 3, yes, exactly. But we're kind of working with tier 4, the kids that are basically they're so dangerous, they're hurting people, and the Tennessee government Department of Education knows that these kids are the problem children. You know, that they're the ones that are causing the most injuries, being restrained the most. Those are the kids who we are working with. And right now, my work is about trying to incorporate these procedures, trying to help these kids live a better life, learn the skills that they need to learn in a way that is trauma-informed. And it's very hard to do in schools. I don't know how much this will be relevant to the Brazilian audience, but Tennessee is a less resourced state. Among the 50 states in the United States, Tennessee is in the bottom of states that have resources, money, people that can help with these kids. So often these are the kids that are forgotten. And I'll tell you something. If it's a child who's hurting a lot of people, often they're a minority child. They're not a white kid. They're a black kid, a brown kid like you and me. They're often an intellectually or developmentally disabled kid. They have some type of cognitive delay, something like that. They're often coming into a class. They're asked to do multiplication. They can't do multiplication. They act out. The teacher gets mad. They flip a desk. They go leave. The relationship is very bad. The teachers want them out. The teachers don't want to deal with this problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The children become problem children. And there's a very real, in America we call it a school to prison pipeline. The children that are problem children in schools become children that end up having trouble with the law when they're older. They end up going to prison. And this is something that we want to prevent because the American prison system is very bad. It's just, It's very harmful. It is not a good thing. It's based off of profits. I could talk about that that'll be our next interview together, I hope. Yeah, I can talk about how problematic that is. So what we want to do is not only help those kids, this is exactly what I mean. These are the kids that are living in environments that are unpredictable to them. We want them to have the skills so they can navigate people that aren't rooting for their success. But we also want to create cultures in the school context that are more supportive of these kids, where the beauty of behavior analysis is that we believe that behavior is not a fault of the person. Behavior is controlled by environmental variables. My job currently is to help teach educators, principals of schools, the directors of the school, teach them that these children deserve as much of a good life as the kids that aren't causing these problems, and it's up to us to help those kids learn these skills. So the research that we're doing at Triad is really about trying to capture that. How can we help the most high-risk students in the public school system so that they're not being sent to the hospital, they're not being sent to some residential facility. They can learn in the public school environment. We can help them with ABA. And that's what I'm so excited about. ABA has the science. We have the science, we have the principles, we have the procedures, we have the technology to help these kids and to help their educators have a better relationship with them.
They are suffering too.
Everyone is suffering, and we want to decrease that suffering. That's why ABA is a very compassionate endeavor. But we want to be compassionate both to the teachers and the students, and we want to help both of them find happiness with one another.
Yes. How are you teaching them? Is presential? Is online? is asynchronous, synchronous? How do you do
Oh,
that?
it's a combination of all of those things. It really is. It's a combination of meeting with them. So, you know, we are in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the capital of Tennessee, and this is where a lot of the resources are, a lot of the money is. We work with students that are out in the most rural areas, at the very, very tip-top corner of the state. And so we will meet with them on Zoom. If we need to do a functional analysis, I don't do this, so I cannot. But John Staubitz, who hopefully you'll see,
Yes.
Holly Gover, who you'll see, Joey Staubitz, who you'll see. These are the folks that get in the car, they drive there, they go do the functional analysis, they make sure everybody's safe, they make sure everybody's having a good time, they make sure that these educators understand what we are doing, and it's a very beautiful thing because there are people, they don't have any exposure to behavior analysis. They don't. If they do have exposure to behavior analysis, they don't like it.
Yes,
But when
yes.
they meet
It's
John
like
Staubitz,
Brazil.
they don't like it because they're like, what do you do? Why would you force my kid to do that thing? Blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. When they meet Holly Gover, when they meet John Staubitz, they fall in love with behavior analysis because they understand that there is so much compassion and humanity in our approach. And we're teaching them that, hey, the most important thing you can do right now for your student is to make sure that he enjoys school as opposed to hates school.
Yes.
So we need to create a world where he loves the school. Then only we can teach. Then only we can even begin to try to teach him some skills. So that's kind of the work that we're doing right now. We're very excited about it.
Really good. I'm excited by these studies because it's very important for Brazil.
I
We are
think so.
a very very poor country. So when you do something like that in a poor state, poor, it's not so poor like Brazil,
Relatively
but
poor, right?
relatively
Exactly.
poor,
Yeah. Mhm.
we can use these resources to do the same in Brazil. Use this knowledge, man. We really need it.
Thank you so much for saying that. We would be so lucky if this work was applicable to Brazil. I completely acknowledge. Oh, I keep touching the mic. Sorry about that. If that was allowed, I acknowledge that it's likely very different in the Brazil educational system. You know, that we have different rules that we have to abide by, and all this and the other thing. But I think what we're seeing. Has anybody spoken to you about universal protocols?
No.
Or no? It's a set of procedures that was developed by Dr. Greg Hanley's lab and his company, FTF Behavioral Consulting. And it really has become a cornerstone of our approach, which is basically, if we're meeting children who are at this point that I'm talking about, they're being restrained a lot, they're being secluded a lot, they're hurting a lot of people, they're hurting themselves, we don't have any business walking in there and saying, do this thing differently until they love school and until they don't hate me anymore.
Yes.
They hate their teachers because school is a place where teachers want you to do what the teachers want, not what you want. And there's so much strife there. And this is completely not even bringing into the picture the trauma that they may have experienced, the pain that's going on in their life, how difficult their life is. So we really advocate for something called universal protocols as a first step, as a way to just say, your first job is to basically do, in behavioral terms, non-contingent reinforcement. Give them everything that they might potentially want. Don't present anything that could be potentially evocative. Give them as many, and then it's also a trauma-informed approach. Give them as many choices as you can when you can. If you need them to walk to the bus, let them walk on their feet or on their knees, or a crab walk if you want. Let them walk with their favorite toy if you want. If they have to go to the bus, give them choices, give them control. Make sure that the environment is safe. It has been something that we're only beginning to collect the data. But I feel very confident that the data will teach us that this is an approach that should be that people should consider, rather than Tennessee is a state where corporal punishment is still legal. What that means is that educators are still allowed to hit children with a wooden paddle if they behave badly. This is from the 1940s, 1950s.
Yes, I was hit by the teacher.
Yes, I was hit by my parents, but definitely not in school.
Yes.
But in Tennessee in 2023, a teacher can hit a teacher.
Whoa.
So if they have that in their, those are their options. I can punish or I can reinforce. Our job is to try to help them understand why they should reinforce, why it's good to do that, how it will help their larger life, and how it will ultimately it'll help them be more effective and help their kids have a better time in school.
Yes, no doubt.
No doubt.
That's concerning.
It's very concerning.
I am teacher, and I work in schools in the past decade. So I always ask by my students, if you want, if you can, you could go to school, or you could leave the school. The major, the most of them say they would leave the school.
Wow.
Yes, just a few students love the schools, like the teacher, the Skinner asks us to do. Skinner says the school have to be beautiful, have to be warm, have to be smell. This is very beautiful.
Positively
Yes.
reinforcing,
Yes.
right? School, those data are so important. It's teaching us that school is not a reinforcing space. It's an aversive space. I would rather leave than be here.
Yes, yes.
That's so important.
Yes.
We need to take it into account. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to. So anyway, I'm excited about this work because I believe that school is a very good thing. I believe that every educator in their heart is a very good person, cares about the students that they work with. But sometimes we're told, given these rules, that make it harder for us to be as effective as we can be with our students. And so my job is currently to help my colleagues and to work with my colleagues and to work in these school systems so that our educators in Tennessee can be as effective as possible with their students and effective and socially valid. By that I mean so that the kids are engaged, are enjoying what they are doing.
Yes. You know, I am a behavior analyst and a YouTuber, and I have a video. I didn't tell you yet. I have a video about one paper of you. Is a systematic review you did with Gregory Henley about
goodness.
the man compliance. That's really, really good paper. It's very important because that dysfunction is very forgotten in the traditional literature. We always say about these four functions: sensory, run, I don't remember the name. Escape, and tangible and attention, but not demand compliance. Can you explain what's this function?
I would be happy to. I have to pause first. I have to give you a big compliment. I'm a big YouTube consumer. I spend probably 4 or 5 hours a day watching YouTube. My algorithm on YouTube is something that's very private to me. I don't share it with anybody. It's weird stuff. Please don't go looking for it. But soon it's going to be all Luna ABA content because this is amazing. But the fact that you reviewed that is really an honor to me. The fact that anybody read that paper is very surprising to me, I'll be honest, because I wasn't anticipating that. So man compliance is a function of challenging behavior that basically looks like this. A child asks for something, they don't get the thing. Either an adult says no, or an adult ignores them, or an adult redirects them. Then the child has the problem behavior. Then, because of the problem behavior, or in response to the problem behavior, the adult then gives them the thing that they asked for, or starts to let them control the situation for some period of time. And that was, the lit review was about how many times have we seen that in the functional analysis literature, how have we treated that in the functional based treatment literature, and kind of what's the generality of that contingency. And I appreciate you bringing it up because the larger point here is that there are more than 4 functions of behavior. In 2023, I know that there are still hundreds of trainings out there that say there are 4 functions of challenging behavior. It's either sensory or escape or attention or tangible. And that is just not true. It's just, it has never been true. It's that rumor or that myth has kind of been spread because we've always been committed to, I can only say something is true once we have evidence for it. And in our early functional analysis studies, we were only looking for attention. We were only looking for escape. And that's okay. It's a good thing because a lot of kids have behavior that's sensitive to escape, sensitive to attention. But
it's a bias.
But it's a bias in the research. You're right.
Yes.
It's a bit of a bias. And now that we understand this thing called manned compliance. Meaning, I'm manding for something, you don't give it to me, I'll engage in problem behavior until you comply with my earlier mand. Yes. That's what we're talking about. A mand
and I can mand for anything, not one thing.
Exactly. Our traditional, because the experiments that we conduct, functional analyses are meant to be scientific experiments. So in scientific experiments, we want to be very precise and rigid and careful about what we say. Man compliance is something that's very different than that. It's not a specific thing. I'm not necessarily just asking for iPad, please. I want iPad. Okay, give me the iPad. No, it's children that just have learned that whenever you deny any of their requests, their problem behavior will likely result in you honoring that request. So the paper was beginning to look at, well, where might that come from? And I think that what we interpreted, we don't have the facts because the studies are a little bit limited in scope. The studies are always looking only at the functional analysis of the problem behavior. But I think that what we learned is that, or what we assume is that when kids are young and they start to learn as you guys all know, when kids are very young, they use crying to communicate everything.
Yes.
Oh, my baby is crying. You have a daughter. She was crying. Maybe she's thirsty. Maybe she's hungry. Maybe she wants me to remove her from this floor. Maybe she wants me to carry her. Maybe she wants me to put her down. It could mean anything.
Yes.
In that sense, the crying was a generalized or omnibus mand in that way. But typically developing children often learn language and they learn how to specify their mands. Can you pick me up? Can I have some water? Can I have some food? Can you burp me, please? I don't know if children say, can you burp me, please? But but with children where there's a developmental delay, they might start to learn some of the language. But if I'm like, no, I can't play with you right now, problem behavior, the crying or the melt or the aggression or the property destruction might still be an effective way for mom to put her things down and come attend to me. For mom to put her things down and give me the food that I want. For mom to leave me alone. So the man compliance refers to a contingency that's more flexible and more nuanced than just A, B, C. It's I wanted something, anything. I don't have it right now, but my problem behavior will result in me getting that thing. And if you think about how a lot of people talk about skill-based treatment as the my way treatment.
Yes.
The my way treatment is essentially a treatment for man compliance. It's essentially a treatment that says, I want something in this moment, my way. Give it to me. And we just say, sure, I'll teach you a functional communication response that will result in you getting anything and everything that you want. So all the other reinforcers, attention, escape, tangible, they're all in there. Man compliance I might have a man for you to leave me alone, escape. I might have a man for you to come hang out with me, attention. I might have a man for you to give me your phone, tangible, right? So man compliance is just a way to talk about how problem behavior might be sensitive to all of those things at once, but there's a dynamic social interaction there.
There is some years of this paper. I believe, I don't know for sure, but I believe that the field changed and they are considering this function. Do you see this happening in the field?
Yes. Once we've started looking for it, I see it everywhere. Yes. Especially with children with any language skills. I think that, I honestly think that when it's all said and done, we will look back on this and we will say everything was man compliance. In the 80s and 90s, 1980s and 1990s, we were so busy trying to focus on what's a specific thing that we were trying to isolate it. But kids know that their challenging behavior, when they hit themselves, when they hit other people, when they bang on the table, it is an effective way to get people in your life to do whatever they can to make you stop doing this thing. That, to me, man compliance underlies all other functions of challenging behavior. If you look at my papers that I've published, our enhanced choice model paper, all 5 of 5 clients had man compliance in their synthesized contingency. In my dissertation paper, which was about, which had 4 participants, all 4 of their ISCAs had man compliance in the contingency. Now that we're asking about it, when we meet a parent and we say, why are these problem behaviors happening? Why is your child hurting you? I really have yet to meet a family in my adult life. Ever since I started studying this stuff, I've yet to meet a parent who doesn't tell me a story that sounds like my child uses their challenging behavior to get what they want in that moment. And that's what we're saying. Man compliance is basically a way of talking about the fact that in the moment, our preferences change, our EOs change, our reinforcers change. So people engage in challenging behavior to get the things that are important to them in those moments, specifically children with autism, children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think you may be familiar with the fact that there are some reviews of functional analysis data. Hanley et al. 2003, yes. Beavers et al. 2013. These are reviews that have looked at all the functional analyses of challenging behavior, and then they've created categories. 25% of them are attention maintained, 33% of them are escape maintained, things like that. And that man compliance function is a very small one there. In a future review, once we start looking for it, we're going to see that prevalence number is going to go skyrocket. It's going to be so much higher because most kids, the behavior of challenging behavior is an omnibus mand. Let me say it that way. When we engage in very challenging behavior, it means give me the thing that I want in this moment. If you don't know what it is, figure it out. Do it. Get me that thing now. Otherwise, I will keep banging this table until you do, kind of thing.
Yes. That's why we are expending so much time.
Oh gosh, yeah, I think so. That's how I feel. It's like we're just chatting and chatting.
Yes.
Okay.
The man compliance can some way. It's another way to explain the multiple function.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's a really great. I'm not sure how familiar you all are in Brazil with the notion that there's a controversy between people who think that there's only isolated functions and people that think there's a synthesized function. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
There's a bit of a controversy.
That is growing in Brazil, this controversy.
I see, yeah. And so I think that man compliance is actually a beautiful place where both of these teams can come together and can agree. Because the folks that initially started talking about man compliance and describing man compliance and studying man compliance are the folks who were studying isolated functions of challenging behavior and are the folks who to this day think that this synthesized function is a little bit fuzzy and not clear. Man compliance is a synthesized function of challenging behavior because a person can mand for escape, for attention, for tangible, for 2 of these things, for 3 of these things, for all of these things. A man compliance function includes all of these reinforcers, and and so it is absolutely I think an elegant, clear, and succinct way to talk about multiple control over challenging behavior.
And probably is more prevalent in the future in the new research, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that. Now that we're looking for it, we are seeing it everywhere. Now that we understand it a little bit better, the first study on man compliance was published in 1997, and it was like, there's a child and it's weird. Their challenging behavior occurs across multiple conditions, and it was so bizarre. In 2023, we know that children have challenging behavior across multiple conditions. We know that children learn that their challenging behavior is an effective way to get what they want when they want it in that moment. So absolutely, I think that you may be familiar with a couple of reviews of functional analyses. There's Hanley 2003, Hanley et al. 2003, Beavers et al. 2013. These are comprehensive reviews that looked at all of the functional analyses of challenging behavior, and then they categorized things. They kind of categorized. They said, I don't know the numbers specifically, but they said 22% of challenging behaviors reinforced by attention, 33% reinforced by escape. And in both of those papers, even as recently as 2013, there was a tiny sliver of papers that might have been reinforced by multiple control or manned functions. And I feel very confident that now that we are looking for it, now that we are guiding, that many people are guiding their analysis decisions based off of interviewing people first. When we interview people, when we interview parents, when we interview teachers, they tell us the same story every single time. My child is fine until there's something that they want, they don't have, then they engage in challenging behavior until they get it. What's the thing that they want? Oh, well, it depends. It's multiple things. It's always multiple sources of reinforcement that is driving the behavior. So I believe that we will, in a future literature review, I believe that we will see the prevalence of man compliance go up a lot. And I'm putting prevalence in quotes because prevalence should really mean, if we understand the entire sample, the entire population of individuals who engage in challenging behavior, then only we can talk about prevalence. We can say 60% of kids have multiple control. Yes. We will never know that, but we have an estimate of prevalence, and I believe that that estimate of prevalence will show that more often than not, children are engaging in behavior that serves multiple functions relative to a singular function.
Yes. I want to thank you a lot for this interview. That was really, really great. And we talk a lot about those things because it's true pleasure and true enrichment, this interview. I can ask you to say the last few words to the Brazilian audience, please.
Oh my goodness, it would be my pleasure. First of all, I want to shake your hand. It is such a pleasure to know you and to meet you. When I was early in my career, I read some papers about Fred Keller visiting down in Brazil.
Yes.
And how he's a big champion for behavior analysis. And I understand that back then behavior analysis was driven by the white men in America who were the leaders in academic institutions. And so I'm very grateful for Fred Keller to coming down to Brazil. But I know that because of Fred Keller, we have so many legends of behavior analysis who are Brazilian, you know, Meca Chiesa, Kyle Miguel, Louis, Felipe. These are people who will go down in history as being very influential in behavior analysis. Who am I missing? Who are some of the big...
Júlio De Rose, Daisy das Graças, Hélio Guilhardi, Antônia Bibi, Carolina Bori is the partner of the Keller. Maria Amélia Matos, João Cláudio Todorov. There is a lot of great Tourinho. There is a lot of great, really great behavior analysts.
There are a lot of really great behavior analysts in Brazil. It's beautiful to think about how cultural selection works, right? Yes. How there was Fred Keller does deserve credit for taking the time to come down there, but it was the Brazilian people who said, this is right, we acknowledge this worldview and that we think it's beautiful and we think that there's so much to do with it. So Brazil is at the top of my bucket list of places that I want to visit because I don't think there's any other country that has such a radical behavioral worldview, and I think that that's so beautiful and powerful. And the fact that I was able to sit with you today and to talk about a trauma-informed approach to behavior analysis, it's very meaningful to me. It means a lot to me. If you are listening, I know that we've been going for some time now, and I don't think either of us meant for that to happen, but the conversation was very natural. So I'm very grateful for your ear. I hope I get to meet all of you someday, and I do believe that the future of applied behavior analysis is very, very bright. In America, we have our own demons that we are fighting, but we are going to overcome them. And as I understand it, in Brazil, you have a different set of obstacles that you have to, or barriers that you have to overcome. But the future of applied behavior analysis is bright if we embrace a trauma-informed, compassionate approach, and if we understand that there is a person behind every single data point that we analyze. And it is my pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you so much.
Obrigado, pessoal. Nós vamos levar ele pro Brasil. Fica aguardando, hein?
Obrigado.
Obrigado. Tchau pra vocês. Abraço.